many babies should you expect your ewes and does to have in a given year? You may be surprised at the answer. Stay tuned to find out more. So a lot of you are wanting to know how many lambs and how many goat kids should you expect to reasonably get in a year. And this is really important because for a lot of you that are planning on raising and selling lambs and goat kids, you need to know how many you're going to have in order to realistically figure these numbers and crunch your numbers to determine what your profit margin is going to be for a given year. Now, a lot of people are inclined to try to sell you animals, and so they are also inclined to tell you things that you may want to hear. And we've been seeing a lot of individuals recently telling people that you should realistically expect to have 2 lamb or kid crops per year. That is to say, you should expect your ewe to have lambs twice a year, or you should expect your doe to have kids twice a year. And in all honesty, this is just not realistic. I want you to understand why. Now, I'm going to try to avoid going into the deep weeds of the very specifics as to why animals go into estrus and when they go into estrus, but we need to lay down a little bit of foundation work. And the foundation work is this. Left to their own devices in the northern hemisphere of the world, sheep and goats both prefer to go into heat or estrus in the fall time and have their babies in the springtime. If left to their own devices, if you were to take a group of sheep or a group of goats, put them in with a male in a pasture or in a pen and just leave them alone and not intervene in any way whatsoever, what you would find is they would more than likely, if you want to do percentages, we're going to say in the 90 something percentile of them are going to go into heat in the fall, they're going to get pregnant, and they're going to have their babies in the spring. This is just the natural cycle that they prefer to fall into. Now you notice I keep on using these wishy-washy terms like what do they prefer and what is most likely going to happen. Notice I'm not saying this will happen, that will happen, this is 100%, that's 100%, because that's not realistic. And when it comes to sheep and goats, nothing is 100% for sure. I'm just telling you what they normally do. Some breeds, some types of sheep and goats will go into estrus during off season. Most of the time when this happens, it is because the farmer has chosen to manipulate them in some way, shape, or form. Those of you that are looking to either breed your animals out of season, or you're looking to do what's called accelerated breeding or intensive breeding, you are going to have to be open to 2 very specific ideas. And without these 2 very specific ideas, if you're not willing to do these, you should not even consider trying to do accelerated breeding or intensive breeding. And those 2 ideas are these. The first one is you will need to keep your males separated from your females. And why is this? The control aspect. The only way to really control and know when your females are going to have their babies is by only having the males introduced at a very specific time of the year, or to have some control over that. If you leave your males in with females all the time, they're going to do breeding based off of when things just naturally happen. Chances are you're not going to see them breed, and you're going to find that you're going to have lambs or kids born sporadically throughout the springtime, depending on when the females go into estrus. By keeping that male segregated and only introducing him in a very specific time, what you do is you control the breeding cycle, you control the breeding window, because you're going to have a better idea of when they were bred. When it comes to that point, the point number 1 that you need to consider if you want to do this, keeping your males separated, that's why. It's a control aspect. And without that level of control, things can get all out of whack, and we'll kind of get into that later. There's also points to consider with keeping your males segregated, which is females will tend to go into heat if a male is introduced. We call this the ram effect or the buck effect. If you're going to do intensive or accelerated breeding, you have to consider keeping your males separated. The second thing that you're going to have to be open to is the idea of using hormones to manipulate when these females are going to go into estrus, especially if you're going to try to push your females to get pregnant more than once per year. If you were expecting them to get pregnant in an off season, like for instance April or May, if you want them all to get pregnant at that time and you're introducing a male, the reality of it is you're probably going to have to use some kind of hormonal implant, what we usually refer to as a cedar. It's a progesterone implant placed inside the animal's vagina for the period of about a week and then removed, and then you're going to have to give them a shot of a gonadotropin or another hormone that's going to cause them to go into estrus. And there's different ones that you can use, but basically what the professionals, that's what we're getting at here. Normal farmers, normal people that are just raising animals for fun or are just getting started are not doing this intensive breeding. If you want them to do this intensive breeding, this is what the big producers do. They keep all of their animals together. They will give them all hormones all at one time, so they all cycle at the exact same time. They'll introduce a male, the male breeds them. They know when they were bred, they know when they cycled, and they know when they're going to have their babies. If you're running a flock of 400 or 500 animals, or even 20 to 30 animals, if you have a 9-to-5 job, if you have other obligations, you have to ask yourself, okay, do I really want to be having babies sometime between December and March, just willy-nilly? Do I want them to just be on their own? And the answer may be yes, and you may be fine with that. But for others of you, and you know who you are, the number one stressor you have in your life around lambing and kidding time is you're like, oh, when are they going to go? I think they're pregnant. When are they going to go? She sure looks like she's pregnant. I think she may go. And then they go a week later, or you go out there one morning not expecting it and you've got babies out there. You lose that control. And that's where these factors come into play. So now into the deep weeds question, the question that everybody wants to know, which is how often can I realistically expect my animals to have babies? Well, the reality is this: the average gestation cycle is 146 days. So we're almost at 150 days. And when you add 150 together twice, that'll get you to 300. And that only leaves you 65 days a year to wean and to do everything else that you need to do. So 65 days. So you're looking at just over 2 months. So that comes down to 1 month per group to wean. So go with me here mentally. Does it sound realistic to you that you could have babies twice per year? That would mean that if on January 1st you bred all of your ewes and they all got pregnant the very first time, the very first estrus cycle, and they all carried their babies and had their babies on exactly that 146th day, and they all weaned at exactly the same time, early weaning, mind you, 4 to 5 weeks later, and you bred them back immediately, and they all got pregnant again, you would just be making it very, very close. Within weeks, you'd be at like the end of November when they would be having babies again. That is what we call a Goldilocks situation, where everything has to be just right. So what is the reality? Well, the reality is I don't have to tell you what I've done. What I'll tell you is what the universities have done. And the top university that has studied this is by far and away Cornell University. And Cornell University has came up with a system better known as the STAR system. And the STAR system comes down to 5 lamb crops in 3 years. Now, if you look over my shoulder here right now, you're going to see this star. Now, when you look at the star, essentially every point on the star represents a breeding time. So if you pick a point and you skip a point and go to the next point, that's the point that they're going to lamb on. So breed, skip a point, lamb. Skip a point, breed, skip a point, lamb. skip a point, and it just keeps going and going and going, to where in 3 years they will lamb or kid on every single point. So now I'm going to kind of give you the down and dirty on this. I'm also going to include some website information that you can find and that you can read about this. I want you to read about this on your own. It's kind of complicated. Okay, why am I including this in here? What's the point of this? Well, the point of this is to show you, no kidding, this is the best that the universities have come up with. And I want you to understand how intensive this is and how complicated this is. And this is to get 5 lamb crops in, or kid crops. When I say crops, I just mean they're having their babies 5 times in 3 years. In this system developed by Cornell University and often called the STAR system, the calendar is divided into 5 segments, and these are represented by the points on the star. Each represent 1/5 of the year, which is about 73 days. The star can be rotated to give you the most suitable date, so you can move these points to wherever works for you. Now, 2/5 of a year is 146 days, which is approximately the gestation length of a ewe or a doe. Your flock in this system is actually divided into 3 groups. So you're going to take your ewes and you're going to take your does and you're going to divide them into 3 groups. When the system is in operation, during the first 30 days of each segment, one of those groups will be having their babies, the other group will be being bred, and then you're gonna have this intermediate group, which is in like late gestation. So the next 35 days of each segment would represent lactation for one group, late gestation for the second group, and early gestation for the third group. The second and third groups are generally managed together, and this helps to reduce the system down from 3 groups to about 2 groups. Lambs and kids from the lactating ewes and does would be weaned 7 to 8 days before the beginning of the next breeding period. And the ewes and does are bred at the first period, and then it just starts all over. This system actually produces 5 lamb or kid crops in 3 years at a 7.2 month interval. Any ewe or doe that happened to miss a mating period in 3 years would still average like 1.67 per year, and then as they miss more and more and more, it kind of goes down from there. On average, when Cornell did this, they ran this for 15 years, and what they found was the best they could come up with was about 1.5 lambings or kiddings per year. And this was with the most receptive ewes and does that they could find, and really working the system really hard. When you ask the question, and when people tell you, oh, well, you can have 2 per year, and you can have this, and you can have that, what I want you to know is, no kidding, the university studies say otherwise, and what they say is, the best you can hope for is about 1.5 per year, which comes out to 5 lamb crops or kid crops in 3 years. I know this is a lot of information and I want you to digest it. I want you to check out the links below. If you check out the links below, I'm gonna have some stuff on there that you can look at, that you can go on Cornell's website, read about this on your own. This may be a system that works out great for you. It may not, but for those of you that really wanna get down to what is the most that I can do per year, this is the system that is best suited for you, especially for those of you that are in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, it works as well. It's just obviously flipped. And then as we move closer to the equator, you may be able to do slightly more intensive, but again, the studies just don't show that it's feasible. Hopefully this helped you out. Hopefully this helped to answer some of the questions that you might have. I'm Tim from Linessa Farms, Specialty and Heirloom Livestock. Thanks for joining us again today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.